Surprise! This is kind of cool. It's currently 1:30 in the morning and I'm feeling kind of good. Hello, welcome to the absolutely exciting yet boring experience that this channel is going to be. That totally didn't just happen. But I'm Alexis, and this is kind of the intro video to what I hope to be an informative channel, an interesting channel, and an educational channel, because I have a lot of interests that are not really talked about. So I would like to go into detail and describe a lot of them, and to kind of dwell in them a little bit more than just what they are meets the eye. So today, the topic that I had in mind, and trying to start off a YouTube channel, or trying to start off a series of sorts, is a topic that it comes to mind when I talk about my career and what I do right now versus what I wish to do in the future. And I'm a little skewed up. And the reason being is that to many people, what I'm into is just a little odd. And what I'm pursuing right now, I'm finishing my bachelor's of science in forensic investigation. Hopefully going to the field right after and pursuing my master's in forensic science later on next year and the year after that. Right now I work as a funeral assistant for funeral homes in my area. So it's kind of, I always get questions. That self-identity in what I do and how I do it and why I do it, it comes from a phrase, a term that I'm going to kind of talk about today. And that's morbidity. Am I morbid? And I just totally did not think of the song Am I Evil? But I guess you can put in that term. Am I morbid? And this can be used not just pointing at me, but someone asking themselves, am I morbid? And I can feel a little confident saying that everyone's a little bit more. They have their own level of morbidity. So the term morbidity or morbid is a state of unhealthy, a state of disease, which is, when you think about it, when someone proudly proclaims, I'm morbid, it's more so, if you think of it in the medical terms, saying, I'm diseased, I'm unclean. The act of morbidity is a state of unclean, and that is the mind, because I feel like, especially in our generation nowadays, everyone wants to be posh. They want to keep their skeletons in the closet and double lock that closet. They don't want their darker side to show. And, you know, growing up in the 2000s, being, I'm still very young, as much as I like to try to sound intellectual and older, I'm not that much. And out of her goth stage, if you will, even though that'll always be a part of me, I had that heavy emo goth stage. I grew up with the music and that grouping, and not so much of a culture, but as a bonding device with many, because I didn't have a lot of bonding devices with people my age, because I always got the same thing. I'm dark. My mind is dark. I like dark things. Why are you drawing that? Why are you talking about that? Why are you saying that? And it sounds like a little teen. Me probably speaking about this sounds like a little teen talking about why they're so different. I'm so different because I like death and skulls. You're not the only one. There are so many people that have that interest, and not only interest, but careers and fields and hobbies based around something that's morbid. Oh, I watch horror movies, so I must be morbid. To an extent, yes. There's different levels of morbidity, whether you like morbid music. And people define morbid music differently. There's kind of a seesaw effect with being morbid. People find that morbidity is normal, and some people don't, when truly it's more of what's acceptable to someone and what's not acceptable. I feel like most types of morbidity is acceptable. The degree of when it's not acceptable is when it inflicts harm onto others, onto someone's body, onto someone's mind. That's when it starts becoming criminal. And it can become criminal quite fast if you give the wrong person the right tools to do so. And that comes from our culture. Our culture, as much as people want to deny death in the face and deny, bodily processes and deny a culture of morbidity, that's what our entertainment industry has profited off of. I'm an avid gamer. I'm not a big movie watcher, but I'm fine with horror movies. Things of that nature are morbid, but people flock to the movie theater to see the next thriller, or people flock to their local merchandise store to pick up the next horror game, or even the next war game. And some people can even define that as morbid as well. The morbid interest, more so to me from what I found, really don't have a definition. It's how you define what you're capable of handling. Does being labeled morbid bother me? No. I'm not, I try to rarely put labels on myself. I'm not bothered by it because it's just another label, it's just another box. I don't see myself as morbid, even though a bit contradictory to what I just said. I really don't see myself as that morbid. I find that my morbidity is a normality. It's something that is normal to me because that's just me. You ask anyone around me how Alexis is and they're gonna tell you it's what I'm into. And I feel like that in itself, it doesn't bother me. When people tell me I'm morbid for what I like, I already know. It's full self-awareness. I know that what I like is not what everyone else likes, and that's fine. Why is morbidity important? Mortality and morbidity, they go hand in hand. I feel like the importance of to have a morbid outlook on certain topics allows you to see how mortal we are, how fragile we are, how things are deeper than the skin. And when I was in high school as a AP art student, I was an AP art student for almost 4 years, I drew morbid things. I liked morbid things. And it became labeled as a phase. I got the stereotype just because of my appearance of being more goth at the time in my baby bat days. I got the stereotype of, oh, you're alternative and you like dark things and you like that morbid stuff. And there's a point in time, especially with the teen years of experimenting and teens finding themselves, and by all means I'm still finding myself, but there's a line of when you realize that it's not just a phase anymore. These interests that I have aren't because I want to be cool anymore. And a lot of the times when people would say you're weird and you're morbid and ew, and they give me that reaction, and I'm like, yeah, I'm that kid. I'm your worst nightmare. I'm the one that's gonna paint blood on your wall with acrylic paint, add a little depth and highlight, and boom, now you're gonna be so scared. I can draw a skull on your paper and now you're gonna be disgusted. That was intriguing at the time because I felt unique. And that was a long journey. From always having these interests and then coming up to the precipice of my senior year, that was really the only year I had confidence. My morbidity was always pretty hidden. Coming up in elementary school, I showed it a little bit in middle school and got bullied out the butt for it. And then coming into high school, I realized that I've always had these views and these interests. And I always let people shut me down and tell me it was wrong because their level of morbidity was down here. And my tolerance for it was up here. You get labeled all the stereotypes in the world for it. And it started to attack me in different ways when people would put this label on me. And I think the self-acceptance of saying, yeah, I'm a little weird. I think that's what we all have to come to at the end of the day. I'm a little weird. I'm a little bit twisted. But in the right ways. Because it allows me to see, and it's going back to mortality and morbidity, it allows me to see things differently. I see death differently. Especially working in the death care industry now, I see it all differently. There's a newfound respect and an understanding of something that's so unknown. When I was drawing, I never even drew to be a wow factor. And I never did it for the thrills. I did it because I knew there was something beneath the surface that I was intrigued with and that enticed me. because there was something more to it. And I feel like that's kind of the versus and why it's important for someone that is morbid, to the morbid and interests that are acceptable, to accept that it's okay to like something that's a little darker than the norm. There's levels to it. There's levels to morbidity as interest, whether it comes to, you know, I like dark music, I like horror movies. Keeping them as an interest and not going beyond what entertainment culture has taught us about it, that in its own, it's fine. You're always gonna have horror movie enthusiasts. You have people that like dark and, you know, heavy metal and different things of that nature. You like people that like really grotesque and twisted art. You're always gonna have that. And then you have, you know, professional morbidity. Professionals in fields, you know, the field that I pursue with forensics, those professionals are morbid in a sense. Taking pictures of the scene, documenting, talking about the scene, having those images play in their head, those kind of topics, that's a professional morbidity. Without professionals that have this mindset of being morbid, we wouldn't understand the processes of death the way we do. We wouldn't understand how to come about it. And they are the ones that inspire the casual morbid. You know, we see in TVs of CSIs on the scene, taking fingerprints, taking pictures, moving the bodies. And that's kind of the line, putting those together. They're on their own. You kind of start going from casual and professional morbidity to something beyond the line. And I think that's where the true line is drawn. When does it become psychological and when does it become criminal? And at the end of the day, it really all depends. We know that anyone that kills, anyone that hurts or harms someone, their mind is so out of touch. Some of these men labeled serial killers were grotesquely morbid. There was a fascination, and there still are. People have a fascination with seeing death firsthand, being the bringer of death, being the reaper. They have this fascination that perhaps it's the media that shows us, you know, that how easy it is to kill, how easy it is to take a life, how easy it is to branch farther and farther from a consensual and primitive morbidity to something more advanced. And that's where I feel like it really draws the line. There's no definitive layer. Everyone has their own level. But I think we all can agree that someone that does something of that nature, that is way out of line. And as someone that is going to investigate and, you know, lead the other investigators onto someone that did a crime, that's important for me. I try to desensitize myself to a lot of things that I see and hear, the cases that we deal with, the images that we see in class, the things that I see at work, at the funeral home, and things that I hear. I desensitize myself. But how much can I desensitize myself before I lose myself to it? And I don't realize that morbidity that I have is harming myself and other people. I'm being insensitive. I'm being out of touch. There's a time and place to be morbid. And there's a time and place to have these images and ideas. But there's other people that don't have those levels. And there's a lot of respect that has to go with it too. It brings me back. And I feel like those that are labeled morbid, you have to have a sense of mortality to keep that alive. You can be, I mean, some people are insensitive by nature, but there's a line. And, you know, people come to funerals and they run to the casket to look at the body and they want to see the body and they ask all these questions about death. And I just think there's a time and a place. When is it low? When should our morbidity be low? When should it be high? And I think my answer to that is when it's right. Pursuing something that's morbid is, if it's not accepted in your household, if it's not accepted in where you are and even your religion, you pursue it to your level. But you have to respect other people's level. And I feel like I overstep this a bit because I forget that other people don't like death the way I do. People don't like the things that I'm into. And I'll start talking about my day at work or things that I studied, and you don't know what people are going through in their own rights. And it's always, I'm not saying to safeguard it, because I feel like nowadays everyone's too fresh and fragile. And it's important to keep a morbid mindset, but you have to gauge it with the people around you. And fortunately, I have a lot of great people in the death care industry, in the forensic profession, and people that appreciate death and the weird side of life and things that are labeled flat out morbid. But they're sensible people. They understand that not everyone likes it, but they accept it with themselves. That's the most important thing about this conversation of when someone labels you morbid. If that's your interest, if that's your career, accept it, because you can't just change it. You're always going to be drawn to those things. As long as you can accept being morbid, being moral, and being mortal, I think that's really the biggest virtue, especially for someone young that may be listening to this. Yeah, it's cool to like that kind of stuff and to like those topics, but where's the mortality? Where do you understand that mortal line? And where's the morality? Do you have morals that knows when something is acceptably morbid or unacceptably morbid? That's kind of something that I wish I told my younger self. I wish I didn't boast about liking the strange and unusual like I did. I wish that I didn't feed into cultures that did, and just to gain recognition, but only to be bashed and bashed with this label that I never accepted. I never accepted that it was morbid until now. As much as I was told it and told that I was weird and cuckoo and everything in the book, I never really got a chance to sit down and say, yeah, maybe I am, maybe they're right. And I feel like it's not even that important of a topic, but for someone that may be watching this at 3 in the morning that was just looking up things on YouTube about death, or someone that's debating a field in death, someone that's debating collecting taxidermy and oddities and things of that nature, someone that's debating liking dark literature, dark books and comics and horror, you gotta accept your morbidity, but you need to know the other two M's to it, the mortality and the morality of it. And I think that's important. And it kind of ties into, are we crazy? And you're gonna feel crazy about liking these interests, but I want to encourage to be more death positive and more open to the darker things of life, as much as it scares you. Wrapping this up, talking about being morbid and things of that nature, it's not an important topic, but it's something of self-searching. And I feel like lately I have been accepting myself for the darker things that I appreciate and the darker things I do, because without that, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't have developed the interest I have if I didn't have a morbid curiosity. And some people are debating it, and there's a lot of teens going through those phases that everyone mocks, but I don't think those are, as much as they're funny and cringy to laugh about and look back on, I really don't think that we should approach it like that anymore, because there's sense in it. The people that are just blindsided with, oh, I'm so different, I'm so edgy, they don't see it like that. And I think that we need more awareness and education about things like that, and not ridicule someone for having such different interests. And it just kind of has become something more. And the world in itself is just so fragile, especially now with how everyone takes things to be offensive, everyone takes things to be too literal. And not even me saying that, it's just everyone's kind of noticed that. People aren't as thick in the skin as they may have seemed, or maybe this is how everything's been all along. And we've toughed it out through all these generations, and finally people are realizing there's a level. And I feel like taking away morbidity, taking away the levels of morbidity for sensitivity, it's not going to cut it. We need to keep things dark. We need to keep things real. And morbidity goes with history too. We've ignored so many cultural phenomena and cultural tragedies because they were too dark. History seldom talks about a lot of great wars, battles, and struggles, and I'm sure many of you can list a lot about it. Topics and strifes that the poorer people and people that have been persecuted in history aren't talked about because it's too morbid. Morbid conversations normalize it, and I feel like morbidity should be normalized. People should be allowed to experience morbidity at a pace that is acceptable. They can digest it, because people are gonna find out about it. I think I've rambled enough for today, but thank you for watching this video. If you have opinions and views, I hope you just kind of keep it a little calm, keep it in the comments, and, you know, embrace what makes you different, embrace what makes you weird, because there's a baseline to it, there's an underlying cause to it, and I feel that if we can allow each other to explore ourselves on the inside, we can start helping each other and educating people on the outside. Death and being morbid can be taken as an educational standpoint, and I hope that opening up conversation allows people to see that and allows people to gauge that for themselves. So if you haven't already, I'm going to be talking more about forensics, working in the funeral business as a 20-year-old, and the things that I see as a funeral assistant. I am not licensed whatsoever. Things of, you know, trying to get into the field of forensics. I'm not in it yet. I'm on a journey, and I hope you all can follow along it too. And things of my interest. I love heavy metal. I love morbid things, and that's kind of what this channel is going to be about. So if that's something that you're interested in and you like hearing someone ramble and go off topic and do what I do and be authentic, then I definitely implore you to keep watching and to subscribe. There's that bell notification. I'm going to try to upload videos at least once, twice a week. Give it a try. Let's see how this goes. Like, I'm taking a risk. Take a risk. Give me a follow, give me a like, let me know what you feel, and if you have any other topics, any questions about it. I'm by no means a professional, but I can be a resource, and I can research, and we can talk about it. We can talk about it on normal levels. I'm not going to be some unattainable figure. I want people to talk about it, and I want to educate people. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye. And I feel like morbidity and morality, morbidity and, what's the word? Yeah, no, hold on, I saw the word.